Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays. And believe it or not, I'm not sick at all this week. I always read that one comment that always says, Mrhappy's sick every single time he records a video, isn't he? Guess what? Not sick at all. Listen. Listen, I have clear sinuses, no coughing, no anything at all. I say that now, I'm probably going to mess it up before the end. Anyway, before we get into the Q&A this week, I have a big announcement. Some of you have been asking about what happened to XIV Reborn, and to give you a short little update, my co-host, Mr. Burns, said he was unable to do the show anymore, so the show is done. But in order to fulfill the desire a lot of people have to have me doing a podcast, something similar, we've got together and made a project called State of the Realm. It's going to be a new podcast I'm going to be doing on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For my co-host, he's going to be Sly A. Gray Fox, and we are going to have some co-hosts and guest hosts come on from time to time. So check it out. It'll be this Tuesday on my Twitch channel, so you know right where to find it. That's in the description of the video. But anyway, I've got triple triading to do, and even though I'm not sick, I am sick of playing this Indolent Imperial. Oh, give me my Gaius card. Anyway, let's move on to the Q&A before I go crazy with trying to get this Gaius Van Belsar card. So the first question comes from Twitter. This question literally came in as soon as I was done recording my video, or done actually posting my video on YouTube on Twitter. So at Mrhappy1227, hopefully didn't miss Mrhappy's with what? Anyway, now that I've messed that up enough, Mondays with Mrhappy just got off work. With the new jobs as they are, do you think we'll see hybrids? I don't think the way the jobs are now necessarily define whether or not we'll have hybrids. They can do whatever they want with this game. It's possible one day, and Yoshi B has expressed an interest in it. But things do need to be changed, and that's the good thing about an MMO. It can always have changes implemented, whether or not people are up to it. So I don't think we'll have hybrids anytime soon. I think we're going to, by the time we see hybrids, the game will no longer be on the PS3. So they're probably a pretty long way off. But I would like to see some hybrid jobs implemented, more out of curiosity than actually wanting it. I want to see how they can implement the hybrid job without basically it being useless, I guess is the right way to say. With this kind of holy trinity in place, having that one hybrid is difficult, but it's doable. So I'm curious to see, and hopefully they will have them one day. Alright, so the rest of these questions are coming from YouTube, so let's get right to it. First question, hello Happy, question 4, Mondays with Mrhappy, got it right this time. What do you think the pros and cons would be if Square Enix opened up cross-data center duties? For example, do you think it would improve queue times or make them worse? It would be nice to see you in some random dungeon. So I don't think it would have too much of an impact, because pretty much you hear the same people complaining about the same things across all the servers. I think that some of the lesser populated servers may benefit from it, but the more populated servers, or I should say more populated data centers, would probably have an even tougher time with it. I mean, if the queue times are not good on the less populated ones, they're not going to get better because we're there. They're going to get better for them, but they might get worse for us. It's hard to say. I think the big pro is that there is a bigger pool of people to pull between. I'm more interested in a cross-server party finder. It's possible. I'm pretty sure World of Warcraft has like something like that, the cross-server party finder. I would be interested in that. I think that definitely opens things up a lot more than just having cross data center duties. But I think that's something that's really not going to happen anytime soon. But I would love some more variety in the people that I see in the duty finder. Next question, one that I'm surprised I don't really get that much anymore. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey Mrhappy, how are you doing? I'm doing great. That's not the question that they actually asked. I was curious to know if you are still with Curse, and as a fairly small YouTuber, would you suggest joining them? Or do you feel the fan donation options like PayPal and Patreon are better? So Curse has been nothing short of phenomenal with me. If they ever have an issue, they're very, very, very transparent about, and they're very helpful to the actual YouTubers. It's why I've stayed with them so long. And you know, I got a lot of offers from a lot of other networks, and there's really been no other network that I've been really interested in. It's just a lot of networks saying like, hey, you might actually start looking for someone right now. We want to make money off of you. Whereas Curse, you know, they didn't come to me, I went to them, and I had a deal with Athene that really helped me get into that. So I'm happy with Curse. If you're looking for a network, especially as a smaller YouTuber, Curse is a good place to go. As for fan donation options like PayPal and Patreon, I'm comfortable with like subscribing on Twitch. I don't really push for donations, or I used to have a Patreon before I had a sub button, but I don't really promote it too much anymore. The thing is, I want to earn the money I make, and while it's nice to get a donation, I leave that option out there for anybody who does decide to use it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, listen, I need donations for X to do this and to do that. I don't want to set donation goals to like buy a 3DS, which everyone keeps telling me to do. But I don't know, I have a mental block about it. So those are good, but if you're going to do YouTube, you need to be safe and you need to be part of a network if you're doing video game stuff. And Curse, pretty easy one to join. They're really helpful. I would recommend them. All right, this next question. Hey, Haps, hope you're feeling better. It's a good thing I started the video letting you know that. Given that this is my first MMO, all right, I'd like to have some insight on how expansions work and what you think might be added. So it's been said that 3.0 will have about as much content as 2.0 had at launch, with maybe the same amount of areas, terrain, and whatnot. Now to my questions, I know it's kind of soon to speculate, but will every expansion continue to add new areas, terrain? Is adding new zones a sort of unspoken rule of expansions, or can there theoretically be an expansion that adds a ton of content that offers no new zones to explore? Now I'm trying to think back to the game I played for the most amount of time, Final Fantasy XI. They had sort of on and off things with their expansions, where the initial expansion was pretty much just new areas or new missions, and then eventually expanded into actual new content. I think it is an unspoken rule. You can also remake old areas, go back and revamp old quest lines and things like that. Really make the world itself evolve, as opposed to literally just being like, this area is like this, we're never going to change it again. You can do it. And, you know, World of Warcraft, obviously the go-to example with Cataclysm. And kind of 2.0. 2.0 was not just a remake of the whole game, but you have to remember a lot of these zones were remade as well. So, yes, it is pretty much an unspoken rule. As for the other new content, I don't really know what to expect about that yet. I mean, we had, what, 14 dungeons at launch. We had 4 endgame raids, and we had the 3 hard mode primals, and we had, like, 2 max level dungeons. I don't think, even though they say it's the same amount of content, I'm expecting we'll have more max level dungeons, at least 3, based on the way they've been doing things. We'll probably have 3 primals. We have 2 difficulties of Alexander. I'm curious about some of the systems, really, that they're trying to implement. I expect it will be pretty much as big as 2.0, including the leveling experience, but the zones thing, definitely, I think we're going to see new zones in every expansion, because there's a huge world outside of the world we currently live in to explore. And I'm hoping that they can take us to some fun new places. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, I'd like to know if you'd like the idea of an ability for Black Mage to provide MP to other party members with an ability in patch 3.0. Now, I do think we are going to see an ability like, not necessarily Innervate, but I do think, like Goad, I guess I'll compare it to, like Goad for MP. I don't think it's going to be a tool that Black Mage gets. I could see where you could possibly think, you know, Black Mage has an infinite MP source, so, you know, sharing their MP with a party member is something that makes sense for them. But I feel like that's, I don't know. I have sort of a block about that, like giving that utility to Black Mage. I feel like that's a utility that maybe Astrologian might have with their Divining deck. I feel like it's also something that Machinist could possibly have, but no matter who gets it, I do want that ability, and if Black Mage ends up getting it, so be it. They could get it, and I could see, you know, lore-wise why that would work. So I'm going to say, you know what, yeah, I could see Black Mage getting that ability in 3.0. It makes perfect sense, lore-wise. Mana Ward, Mana Wall, Mana Infuse, or just call it Infuse or something like that. Next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. Question for week 29. You named your racing Chocobo Outlaw Star. Why that name? Also, it's the name of our free company on the EU Cerberus server, which was a surprise when I saw this. So, literally, there were so many choices to the Chocobo names. I literally just saw the word Outlaw on the list, and I thought to myself, I wonder if you could do Outlaw Star, because Star has got to be on this list somewhere, like Sun, Moon, Star, those all have to be here. So I picked Outlaw, I found Star, and I was like, alright, I'll just go with Outlaw Star. It was one of the few, like, animes that I went back to and watched. I'm not a big anime person. Like, I've seen the generic ones like Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho growing up, things like that. And I've seen a few in my later years, you know, like Steins Gate and Haruhi. But I don't like actively pursue watching anime. It's just not something I do. But Outlaw Star has always been one of my favorite, like, short animes, because it's just 26 episodes or something like that. And it was one of the few animes that I actually bought a box set for, like a huge like box set. And I don't know, it just worked out that way, really. I just saw the name and I was like, sure, why not? Next question for next week. How do you feel about the current Chocobo racing system, where it puts you in races with NPCs along with other players, in some cases all NPCs during late hours? Personally, I still have a great time, but I've seen some people complain about it. I know it's an MMO, but if I was able to do Chocobo racing in Final Fantasy VII as much as I did, I think in Final Fantasy XIV playing against all NPCs, you know what? I almost wish they take that system and just put it into dungeons as well. Because would you rather sit there waiting to find 8 people, or even just 4 people with 4 NPCs maybe alongside, that are all around the same rank as you, they're all entering into the same, rating, they don't outscale you at all, it's a fair game. Would you rather wait for that and end up like the Wolf's Den? Or would you rather just, have your queues going? It's like, yeah, I want to grind out some Chocobo raiding tonight, and it's really late, so I'll queue in. All right, 7 NPCs. At least I'm getting into queues fast, and I'm getting to accomplish my goals. It's solo and MMO friendly. I almost wish they could take that idea and put it into dungeons. Like, if I'm a DPS waiting in queue for, like, 10 minutes, it'll throw me in with some NPCs to fill the other slots. They've talked about doing things like that, where you have 3 NPC companions and you go into dungeons with them and level up the companions. But I almost just want that to be like a system where the NPCs are smart enough, if I'm standing in an AoE, I move out of it. It's really that simple. Add spawn, I know what to do. You can program the NPCs to know how to do the fights in those low-level dungeons, at least at a basic level. I almost want that system to sort of expand into the low-level dungeons to help DPS queue times. Next question, Mr. Happy, a question for week number 29. Recently, I read a Reddit thread commenting on the state of combat in 14, how it's clunky and stiff in some ways. I personally like slower-paced games like this, but do admit it can be a turn-off to some. What is your overall impression of the combat in this game compared to other MMOs you have played? Feel free to list pros and cons as well as specific improvements you would like to see. So, the biggest pro of Final Fantasy XIV's combat system, the delay makes it feel like a Final Fantasy game. I know that's a dumb thing to say, but I almost look at the 2.5 second global cooldown and look at that as almost like an ATB gauge that takes 2.5 seconds to fill up. It feels very Final Fantasy paced to me, which is why I like it, because I've always liked Final Fantasy games growing up. It's comfortable to me. Now, of course, that pro is more on a personal level. People who don't care that it feels like a Final Fantasy game, that's not a real pro that you can tell them, and that it'll make them accept it, The pro is, it's more, you have to do your abilities right. It promotes good rotations and higher skill levels, because making a mistake means you're going to take another 2.5 seconds to fix that mistake. It's not like you're gonna have 1 second to fix your mistake. Making a mistake is much worse. That's a pro and a con, because higher skilled players can make that system work really well for them, and lower skilled players, it punishes them even more because they might miss a thing here or there. It also means that we have a separation in abilities. I find this to be a pro, where you have abilities that are on your global cooldown, and then you have to prioritize how you use your abilities in between the global cooldowns. And I feel like that's a strong system to have in place, and it makes the combat feel faster, even when you're mostly only doing damage once every like 2.5 seconds, other than your auto attacks. The big con is that it's slower, and people who have played other MMOs, whether they be Korean Grindfest MMOs, or World of Warcraft, or any really of the other MMOs, most games have that 1 second global cooldown, and then a cast time that extends past that 1 second. So while they tend to have similar paces, that 1 second global cooldown makes those games feel a lot more faster paced, and it gets the mind going a lot faster. I think that's a con in the game. It's as much a pro as it is a con. A specific improvement I'd like to see, you know what? Not really much at all, because I guess it's kind of just because I've played Final Fantasy games all growing up. I'm not very good at answering what I'd like to see improved. The only things I'd like to see improved are like individual job things, or, how do I say this, server side. They're not even combat related things. The problems I have with the game might branch into combat, but they aren't directly combat related changes. I feel like the game flows very well in terms of combat, so it's hard to say. I've given you my pros, I've given you my cons. That's pretty much the best I can do. Pretty much every pro is also a con, which isn't a good thing, but it's the best way I can find to describe it. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. Question for week number 29. For a Scholar Relic weapon, which materia should I put into my Relic? Crit is my primary stat in my build. That's the first one. That's very important. But you don't really know after that. Determination or Piety. P.S. Cleric Stance should give a very slight boost of accuracy. So, you've hit the nail on the head with that last statement about Cleric Stance. Not that it should provide accuracy, but if you are DPSing in endgame raids, accuracy is a very serious consideration as the other stat that you go as a Scholar Relic. Yes, it doesn't help you with your healing at all, but a higher skilled Scholar isn't just healing. Yes, they do need to heal, but they are also DPSing every opportunity they can where the extra healing's not needed, and that extra accuracy, especially in Final Coil. We had Scholar, our Scholar is like 300 DPS, and we all live, and we all do the same damage, so that's good. That's the result of accuracy, because he's not missing any more energy drains either, which is another good reason. If you don't want to go accuracy because you're not super big on DPSing, I'd recommend you put the accuracy on and practice it. But other than that, Piety's not really a problem, so I just go straight for the determination. Spell speed is a little bit wasted, still decent, but more weight. I'd go determination if you're not going to go the accuracy route. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. Question for week 29. I have been watching your videos for a bit now, and every time makes me want to play again. I get that a lot. People come into Twitch and they blame me. They're like, because of you, I'm playing again. It's your fault. The question is, if I start later and don't make it to level 50, would I need to do level 50 content to continue to 60, or would I be able to just continue leveling and forget that content for the time being? Thanks for the answer. Love the vids. Keep it up, bro. Thank you. So we don't know yet. But if the answer is, are you going to have to do Coil? Are you going to have to do all the level 50 dungeons? The answer to that, I can already tell you, is no. The big question a lot of people have is the main story. Are we going to have to complete all the way through to 2.5's main story in order to do the Heaven's Word storyline quest? That's a big question, because it's not like 2.0 ended and it was like, all right, we're prepared for the expansion in 2.1 through 2.5, or just kind of like side stories. No, the story was building from 2.0 into Heaven's Word through patches 2.1 and through 2.55. It's hard to imagine not needing those missions to go into Heaven's Word. What they could do is make those missions help you level through Heaven's Word, like get up to level 55 or something like that. That would be one potential way they could do it. But those are all you might have to do. You might have to do the level 50 story missions, and that's it. But don't expect to have to do Coil or any of the dungeons or anything like that. You'll probably be able to just go straight to 60. Next question. Mr. Happy, are you going to PAX? By the way, seems like you lost some weight. This face. I think that's what that face is. It's like, I don't know. It's something like that. No, I'm not going to PAX. I would have loved to have gone. But I kind of was, this year's not very good for me, money-wise. And no, I'm not saying, don't, I already touched this before, I'm not saying donate. It's because I'm literally taking this year, and I'm putting like 75% of all my earnings into student loans, and the other 25% are to pay rent, to go grocery shopping, and occasionally, you know, order out food or go out to a restaurant or something like that. I also put some money aside for a trip in April. And I don't know, and I also have sort of like more backup funds in case I have to go out or travel again later this year. So I'm not going to PAX. I would have loved to, maybe next year. There's a lot of events I would love to go to, but I just simply can't because I'm restricting myself in terms of how much money I spend. So maybe next year. Next question. Question? Asked by Psychics War Carpenter and Monty Russo on Hyperion. What is the damage for limit break attacks based on? Average item level or individual weapon level? Individual weapon level. So it collectively takes the item level of everyone's weapon in the party and uses that in a calculation that I'm not really too sure about in order to determine the damage. The single target limit break is 8,000 potency. It's probably an unaspected damage. How do I say? Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, it's either physical or unaspected. I'm pretty sure the melee LB is physical. But regardless, it's 8,000 potency for the single target limit break, 5,000 potency for the caster limit break. And to help calculate that, it takes everyone's weapon damage, adds it together. That's why it's usually a good idea if you have one DPS that does substantially more damage than another one, and they're both like melee DPS, you make the weaker you make the weaker DPS use the limit break so that the better DPS can put out more damage throughout that entire time. Alright, so next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, I was wondering how you think the Dravanian conflict will be handled in the expansion. I was surprised to see that the endgame raid is not related to dragons at all. Do you think that the story will be ended similarly to the Garleans in 2.0 with some 8-man story dungeons, or perhaps even in the next 24-man raid? Basically, what are your hopes for the story of the expansion? I actually am hoping that... Alright, so let me go back and explain. 2.0 kind of ends with, you know, Bahamut kind of being teased, and then you have to unlock the Coil of Bahamut, and that's a separate side story altogether. And then you have Crystal Tower, which is just there, and yes, there are some characters that you met in the main story involved, but it's not really part of the main story either. What I would like to see in 3.0 is Alexander kind of fill the Crystal Tower role where people that you've met in the story are important and are influenced. I imagine Alphino and Alice will play a part in that as well. But I would like to see the next 24-man raid be an extension of the main story. Something that we've actually explored and we know is a threat and we've identified it. Because that's a much more epic feel to me for a main story mission than doing a 4-man dungeon and like a hard mode primal or something like that. I feel like having that super relevant content in the main story as opposed to having the main story be a stepping stone to the relevant content is a much, much better idea than the way they do it now. I'm hoping 24-man raid involves the main story. Next question, Happy. Question for week 29. Do you know the state of PayPal method used to pay for the sub? I've been waiting for what seems forever for Square Enix to implement it. I don't think you can still treat it like a monthly payment service, but yeah, you mentioned here that you use PayPal to buy Krista. That's what I do, so that still works. I think they announced they were working on PayPal. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure PayPal is still only for Krista, and you can't actually use it as a monthly payment service. All right, so I'm getting hungry. I ate dinner at like 3 in the afternoon today, so it's like 8:30 right now, so I want to like nibble on something real quick. I'm gonna use this as my last question, and it is actually a good question. It's one I was surprised I didn't see until right here at the end. Hey, Mr. Happy, question for week 29. What do you think of the grind for Gold Saucer? I personally think it's too grindy. I would literally take about 1,450 hours to get the 1 mil for Fenrir unless you win the large cactpot. So I have two feelings. I think the Gold Saucer has the right idea with its grind. It wants to be relevant for a long time. It wants people coming back. And more importantly, it is, you know, when you go to buy prizes at an amusement park, you almost just wish you could just outright buy the prize instead of having to win all the tickets. And in some places you can. But they know that the amount of time it would take for you to get the tickets in order to like buy a prize or something from the wall, you're gonna have to spend way more money than you would have spent just buying the prize. That's the whole draw. And while the Gold Saucer I feel like it does that. I feel like it captures that aspect. I could see why some people might think it's too grindy. I'm kind of biased against that opinion. Like, I don't think it's too grindy at all. Yes, you are gonna have to grind for it a lot, you know, and you either win the large cactpot or you win 10,000 every day from the mini cactpot. Whatever your method is, it makes those prizes sort of mean something. They are status symbols in a way. You know, the Fenrir mount is a big deal. The Cloud Strife card is a big deal. Nanamo card is a big deal. These things are so hard to get that when somebody has them, you're gonna be like, holy crap, that guy has no life. And that guy's gonna be like, no, I don't. Or, I won the jumbo cactpot, thank goodness, I'm never doing that again. I think it's in the right direction, maybe a little bit too far. You know, 1 million points it's a lot. Maybe cut it down by a little bit. I'm not saying make it 100,000. I'm not saying that. But they just want you to do it until Heaven's Word. Let's be real here. That's why it's so grindy. Anyway, thank you for watching this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. I'm going to get going and go get something to eat. Be sure to ask your questions for next week. Next week, don't forget, March 7th, there is a panel at Pax East with Yoshi P going over new information about Heaven's Word. We hope it's new information at the very least. Hopefully expecting a release date announcement, maybe the collector's edition pricing or pre-order announcements, something along those lines, please. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I'll see everyone next week, and until then, take care.